Hello, beautiful humans. I'm Jem Madrone, and today we're going to talk about the mind because the mind can seem like a huge obstacle in the awakening process and in the process of transformation. Sometimes it can seem like our worst enemy, like we're just constantly doing battle with the mind because it is just so full of crap and is constantly, you know, feeding us this dialogue that is either abusive, mean, and self-destructive, or just kind of annoying and frustrating because it's always, this little chatterbox that is talking about what needs to be done or what somebody said or what happened 2 hours ago or 2 days ago or 2 years ago. And it's really common when we're moving through the process of transformation to get completely frustrated and fed up with our minds and just want to, get rid of all of that self-talk completely. And what often happens when we're going through this process is that it seems like our minds get louder, that we may have an experience of a quiet mind during the awakening experience or peace. And then, after things kind of go back to the way they were a bit, the mind starts up again. And it often feels like it's even louder than it was before. And that's just because we have that experience of peace and stillness to compare our crazy mind to. And because we now have a new awareness of how it is that we want to be, a new awareness of ourselves, a new awareness of what's going on internally. And so it seems like the mind is actually much louder and more abusive often. But that is just because our awareness of it has shifted and changed. And so we then find ourselves in this conflict. We have this internal conflict going on because we know that there's a certain way that we want to feel. There's a way that we want our mind to be. We really want to be in that place of positive, clear, open mind, connected with beauty and grace. And yet here we have that old dialogue that comes in that's judging everything, oh, like you look really old today, or, that person doesn't like this about you, or, whatever it is. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about, this constant string of judgments, of criticisms, of reminders of, oh, you really fucked that up, and remember when you did that really sucked. And and it can be really difficult to change it because like I've said recently, we can't think ourselves out of it. We can't fight the mind with the mind, because then it just creates this internal dialogue, and the dialogue, the mental dialogue, is the issue. And so then the question is, how do we quiet the mind? Many times we start a meditation practice because we really want to quiet the mind. The intention is to quiet the mind. And I remember when I started my practice, I was like, perfect, I'm just going to sit down, meditate for a few minutes every day, and everything will be perfect. Well, I sat down and it was total chaos in there. And it was the hardest thing I ever did, and I said, fuck this meditation thing. And that was probably about 20 some years ago. So obviously I came back to it and learned more about it. But we start this meditation practice with the intention of quieting our minds, and it can be helpful for a moment, but then how do we carry that out through our day-to-day lives? How do we really heal that out of control mind, which is really like a hurt child that's just feeding and spewing all of its hurt and trauma and wounding on to us? Because it's a piece of us, and our mind is actually a very, very powerful tool when used correctly and when not given too much power. Because originally, when we're born, when we're children, we live in our hearts, and our hearts, the morphic field of our hearts, is I don't remember how many times, like at least 50 times bigger than the morphic field or the magnetic field of the brain. And so it is natural and normal for us to live in the heart, but at some point that becomes too painful, and we start to move into the head, and we're taught by our culture and by our family that living in the head is how we succeed, how we accomplish things, how we control things. And the heart often incurs so much pain that we don't even want to be there. But the only way that we can reclaim our power and start to quiet the mind is by shifting that power structure from the head and back to the heart, reclaiming our power that we handed over to this out of control mind, which is a construct of the ego, reclaiming it and gently moving our attention, our awareness, and our energy back into the heart. And when we do that, it's just like pulling the energy out of the mind. Because when we're fighting it with our thoughts, we're saying, oh no, you shouldn't be thinking these things. Or even when we try to replace a thought, which can be helpful and is a good tool, but it's ultimately not the cure for the out of control mind, because it's still feeding it thoughts. We need to shift our energy into our heart. And so basically we're just reclaiming our power. We're moving back into our authentic selves when we do this. And it's a practice and it takes time. And when we shift into the heart, we often find that there's a lot of healing to do before we can actually be there, before we can be there consistently, before we can be comfortable there, because we hold so much wounding and pain and trauma in that heart space. And so, that's really another reason why we're not there very often, is because it's painful. So shifting our awareness down into the heart is a lot like, just not engaging with an argument. It's, someone's arguing at you, and if you just walk away, they have nothing else to say. And so it's kind of the same thing when we move into the heart. We're just disengaging the mind and moving down into the heart. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. When we feel the mind going crazy, we can move the energy to the heart. We can put on some music. We can do something that makes us feel more heart-centered, going out into nature, anything that really helps you be in that space of the heart. Because really what awakening is about changing the power structure from the ego, from the mind, and back into the authentic self, into the heart. It's about allowing the ego to be absorbed by that authentic nature. And so it's a beautiful process. It's not easy, especially when we have to deal with our crazy minds, but with practice we start to find that we are much more at peace, and that's what keeps us going. That's what encourages us to do that deep work and to keep doing the heart healing work. And so if you're sick and tired of your mind, you are tired of the dialogue, you're tired of putting up with all the bullshit that it's feeding you, and you really want some help to switch that power structure and to move into that authentic nature, then please reach out to me, please private message me, and we can talk and see if we're a good vibrational match to work together, and I can share the work that I do with my other clients with you. So if you have any questions, leave them here, and please contact me if you're interested in hearing more. Sending so much love to you guys. Thanks for listening, and have a beautiful day. See you in the Facebook group.